The FBI is interested in something going on at the office of Tommy Rodella. He serves as sheriff up in Rio Arriba County. Now, other county officials say it may be linked to a sheriff's scholarship fund and allegations that Mr. Rodella, who, by the way, is the husband of State Representative Debbie Rodella, may have been accepting donations to the fund in lieu of fines for traffic violations. Rodella's history of public service is as storied as is Rio Arriba County in some ways, because, Larry, there is any way to explain what Mr. Rodella was up here? And again, we can't adjudicate his case here at this table. However, it just does not feel good. It fails the gut test here in some ways.
It does. This reminds me of a version of, those southern towns with the sheriff with his stomach hanging over his belt. Only it's New Mexico style.
That's right.
That's
right. $30 or 30 days.
Yeah,
all that
exactly.
Kind of thing. Right.
Exactly. And it smells. Mm-hmm. It just smells, and there's no way about it. But people get the government they deserve, and they voted him in.
Right.
And so what do you do about that?
That's right. After some history, that vote came where he was in fact appointed back when as a magistrate judge. 4 months later, that didn't work out, came back under the vote of the people. And I bring that up to say his comment that the people have spoken here must carry some weight, doesn't it? I mean, the folks know about him, but they elected him back into office.
Well, given them from southern New Mexico, a little bit of vindication given how much this show and how much of this time was taken up talking about, our friends down in Santa Teresa and all the issues they were having down there. A little vindication that it happens all over the state. Still doesn't leave me with a good feeling, though. And I guess I was just naive. I didn't know the history of, until I started to do some reading on this. He was removed as judge in 2008. Really interesting opinion, disciplinary opinion by the Supreme Court on that. And
that's rough. The language
is
uncompromising.
Not credible. Yeah,
right.
He was found not credible in his testimony. There was a lot of testimony back and forth about his actions. There had been internal affairs reports, investigations of his actions as a police officer. He was a police officer, state police officer from 1982 to 1995. All kinds of allegations. I mean, granted, maybe unfounded, I don't know, but there was investigations. Marijuana use, improper use of a weapon, physical abuse, falsifying police reports. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then he gets elected.
He fired a rifle out of the car window at a silhouette of a deer, I think it was, at a range.
A decoy, which was,
Yeah.
And then
fake deer decoy.
allegations of, abusing sick leave and using his position for personal gain. So fixing tickets, allegedly, for his wife's election and whatnot. I mean, really, we need to have elected officials that are above board. This is outrageous allegations, and then to turn around and then elect him as sheriff is troubling. I mean, it's just troubling, and it makes me not feel very good at all.
But Chris Sanchez, Larry, Aaron said it, we get the stuff we deserve. Folks voted him into office. So is this really an issue that's outside of Espanola? Shouldn't it just be between the voter and him at this point?
Well, you read this kind of stuff and you kind of shake your head and you wish you could laugh about it, but then again, it's our state. So although it creates fodder for late night television, everybody else can make fun of us, we still have to live here and it gives us a black eye. But I think that he needs to resign. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, this guy has quite a thick dossier on a storied history on a lot of accusations, whether he was trying to accuse of intimidating voters or scrubbing tickets in order to win political allies. So I think that he really has given this community a black eye, and he would be doing everybody a favor by resigning.
John Wertheim, the details are too complicated for here, but part of the thing I caught my eye that Laura mentioned in that opinion was his ex parte communications with a witness. And that seems to me, if you're a judge or if you're a legal person, that's just a line you don't cross at all.
I mean, just so the viewers know, there's a published opinion in the Supreme Court. People could actually look it up on the internet if they wanted to read it. The Supreme Court threw him out as a magistrate judge, which doesn't require a law degree to be a magistrate judge in the outlying counties. So those he was found guilty of those allegations. So that's a little separate. If you read that Supreme Court opinion, which includes the allegations you mentioned, he was found guilty essentially of those things, and that's why he was removed from office as a magistrate judge. I think here we do have to respect the idea that he was elected into office. And therefore, if it is true, and I just want to be sure that this is an investigation phase, it's a very serious investigation. It's a warrant served by the FBI, which is not something that most people want to have happen to them. But it's still an investigation. If it turns out to be true that he was essentially exacting charitable contributions in exchange for kind of getting tickets to go away, I think some people think that that's okay. It's not okay. It's illegal. if that is true. And also, there have been other judges in the state that have been removed for that very reason. For example, judges who have done that same thing. A municipal judge in Santa Fe was removed for that. So at the end of the day, if he's guilty, he should be removed from office. I agree with Chris that if he looked at the situation seriously, I think that when you're the sheriff and you've had warrants served on you like this, and you're under investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office, you ought to do the right thing and step aside until your name is cleared. If you really think your name is going to get cleared, then you should wait for it to get cleared, and maybe you can come back. But clearly, the respect of the people for government is paramount here.
Sure.
I think the right thing for him to do would be to step aside, and then if it's true, and he won't step aside, then he should be removed.
Larry Aarons, it's about having confidence in your elected officials, having confidence in your government.
How low is that right now?
That's right, and that's what I think about, the impact on folks in that area.
Indeed, and,
Yeah.
and it also goes to the administration of the sheriff's department. Let's say you're a deputy on the force. How do you respect the boss? Sure. Well, to
It's a
keep your
difficult
job, you would probably publicly say yes, but you got to go out there and enforce the law, and your own sheriff is not abiding by the law.
And to
apparently.
add to that, what happens when those folks have to do their normal duties?
Yes.
Citizens are looking at the entire department saying, well, is this on the up and up? What
Yep.
we're talking about here. The
Right.
speeding ticket suddenly is not just a regular speeding ticket anymore, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on who you know, and it should never be that way, and John is absolutely right.
Yeah. Your thought on that one, too, about that confidence that you have to have?
Absolutely. I think that this undermines the public trust for that position and for his family, unfortunately. I mean, it really undermines their credibility all the way around, and I think something has to be done to show that they're above board. I mean, it reminds me of La Mordida, the La Mordida in Mexico and other places where you basically, you have to pay to your police officers and everybody else to do what you need.
Is that where we are now?
Well, I mean, I hope not, but it seems, I mean, it smacks of that, and I think that's a real problem.
Sure. By the way, a little correction, that was Sunland Park, of course.
Oh,
We're
Sunland
down
Park,
south. That's
sorry.
okay.
Sorry.
That's
I knew it was
okay.
somewhere down south.
That's okay. We're on the clock now with a
Thank you.
minute to buzz through some other headlines of the week. First up, an Albuquerque Journal investigation showed the Martinez administration hasn't been keeping up with required electrical inspections for oil and gas wells. There's a backlog of hundreds. It appears to be intentional. Now, Laura, is this an unfair free pass for the oil and gas drillers, or it's something just got missed along the way here, innocently?
Isn't the truth always somewhere in the middle between those two things?
Quite true.
But
Quite
yeah,
well
I
said.
think it's a serious problem, and I think it sounded like they were trying to address it. It could have been a combination of things, but it does not look good, and it should not be a free pass.
Right, Larry, hundreds. That's the thing. It was a dozen, that's one thing, but hundreds.
Bureaucracy, all this stuff. The Martinez folks are saying they're trying to get on top of it. It is an oversight, and it is serious because it's a safety inspection.
Sure, absolutely. Chris, your thoughts on this?
Oh, I think the governor's office is doing the right thing, and I believe they're trying to rectify it by within the next 90 days. All of them have to be inspected. So I think that was a good call on the administration's part to try and rectify that.
Sure, John, what do you think?
Well, my concern, they only made the call after they were called on it. And so, you need to enforce the laws as written, even if you disagree with the policy behind them. And so I hope that they really live up to their
I
commitment.
wonder if it's a situation where something's underfunded. We don't have enough inspectors out there. I wonder if that's going to come to light at some point. That's interesting, because hundreds, that's a whole other story. Now, next one. George R.R. Martin is a Santa Fean and author of the books that spawned the HBO hit Game of Thrones. Woohoo. He's also, hey, local success. He's also the new owner of the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe. That tiny, lovely little theater may soon compete against a nearby multiplex in the rail yard that's on the books there, Larry. Still, Martin's not hurting for cash. Is this a good thing for locals regardless of where it is? Because if you think about whether he makes money or not, because the new theater and the Jean Cocteau are going to be within a stone's throw of each other. It's
Game on,
amazing, right? Exactly.
No, I think it's great. I think
Yeah.
it's I've been in that little theater. It's a neat little place,
isn't it?
and
Yeah.
and he obviously saw something in it that he can improve on, and he's going to put his money toward it. I
Art
think
House.
it's fine.
Art House. What do you think, Laura, on this
I
one?
think it's really exciting, and I don't think necessarily that it's going to compete a whole lot with those multiplexes because it's a totally different demographic. The types of movies that they're going to show, the potential that they'll draw from, it's not necessarily going to compete with them, I don't think.
Exactly. Chris, what do you think?
I agree. I think it's going to be a lot like the Guild Cinema here in Nob Hill, and I'm really looking forward to going and catching a flick there.
There you go. Santa Fe, and what do you think?
I totally agree. The Jean
Yeah.
Cocteau is a great place when it was open, and
Sure.
so it's awesome to also have those royalty payments coming back to New Mexico. Those big I mean, he's a very wealthy, humble man, but he's an amazing. He's made a
earned
lot
it.
of money,
He's
and it's
earned
good
it.
that
That's
he's
right.
investing
That's
it in
right.
the community.
Let me ask you a couple seconds left on that clock. It could potentially bookend the rail yard if you think about it.
Yeah.
Give almost like a mall. You know what I mean? Just really make that whole thing grow. So it's interesting to think about. Now, I love this story. After a former patient went to the police, a Santa Fe man known as El Dentista was arrested for practicing dentistry without a license, working out of his car with tools from a dirty tackle box. Not making this up. Kind of icky. Now, Chris, does this point to a need for more affordable health care? Is there something obvious going on here?
I was absolutely terrified when I saw the photo in the journal of his tackle box. It looks like my grandpa's tackle box. It hasn't been used in 40 years, still with fish guts on it. I mean, it was disgusting to see that. And what bothers me is that he was preying upon people who can't afford dental work. And I hope more people come forward so we can see just how the extent of it is.
John, the marketplace, however, has spoken. If dental work costs a ton of dough, the El Dentistas of the world have an opening, unfortunately.
Well, they have an opening. If we have holes in health coverage, we have bigger holes in dental coverage.
right.
And so I hate to get too serious on what could otherwise be a very amusing story. But I think it really does highlight the fact that we don't have proper coverage. You can't go into an emergency room and get your teeth worked on. If you could, that's what people would be doing, because that's how they do it with regular health care.
Exactly. Would you go to El Dentista? Would you do it if you were stuck for money?
I barely go to the regular dentist. It's scary enough. It's scary enough for me. No, I mean, it's really sad. I mean, just the idea that there were people who were desperate enough to have to call on him. It really highlights that need for affordable health.
I'm going to take a little more time for Larry. Absolutely.
Everybody at this table knows somebody that's been down to Mexico and has had excellent dental care.
That's right.
The stories I hear have been fantastic.
There's a thriving business right over the border.
Big
in many
business.
places. That's
So
right.
it does point that out. You're right.
Interesting. I'm waiting for an independent New Mexico filmmaker to take this one on. That would be great. Show it at the Jean Cocteau. Now, drought conditions and hotter weather make New Mexico prime for wildfires, and they've already started, yet the legislature failed again to pass a law to expand the authority of states, cities, and counties to ban fireworks on their own. Now, John, it's a bad idea, but many vendors are saying, the fireworks aren't the problem. Did we tie our hands here in that last legislative session?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think it's the communities ought to have the option, and it was just a lobbying effort. Now, there are some issues because the tribal areas are not covered by the same state legal restrictions, but at the end of the day, I mean, Albuquerque should have the right to ban it. All these communities should.
I like the way you say lobbying effort, because Chris Sanchez in the Journal reporting on this, the list of donations from the fireworks people, I think the biggest one was $500 and the lowest was like $250 or something. It wasn't like a lot of money. How did they win the day on something so serious? It's amazing.
And you're right, I really do think it was a mistake, and I actually have a lot more confidence in the people who live in my community who will make those decisions, not people up in Santa Fe.
Good for you. Laura?
Well, it's a lot easier to have something not pass than it is to pass something at the legislature. So, I mean, it's delay, delay, delay. Oh, we didn't get to it, versus when all the effort that goes into actually passing something. So I think, that kind of environment, the lobbyists, all the contributions, I mean, they know how to play this game. But ultimately, Arizona bans fireworks. I mean, we're not that different in terms of a climate, and it's unreal that we don't have the ability to ban fireworks here.
Gonna make some more room for Larry on that one
Look
too.
at the consensus at the table.
It's like a theme tonight.
Yeah, it
right?
really is. It's just common sense, and I think the Pueblos get on board too. If all the municipalities fell in line, I think the Pueblos.
That's an interesting point.
I really do believe that.
Yeah, interesting. There's been a shakeup at the top of New Mexico's environmental regulatory agencies. The end result, an attorney who just a couple of years ago worked for a firm, stay with me here, that represented mining companies, is now the man in charge of the agency that may oversee their impact on groundwater. Laura, this is kind of your bailiwick. Is sinister, matter of just routine? What's your sense on this one?
Well, just to clarify, what happened is Secretary Bemis in Energy and Minerals retired. There was a shift. Secretary Martin from Energy, New Mexico Environment Department shifted over. Ryan Flynn, who's was general counsel of Environment Department, moved up. So that's who we're talking about. He worked for Model Sperling. No reason to think that he in particular represented those companies, but the firm did.
Gotcha.
And I think that's what a lot of environmentalists are having a lot of concern with.
What's the nature of the concern? Quickly,
Well, the nature of the concern is that there wouldn't be enough distance between the person who's making the decisions day to day and basically the interests of that industry.
Fair
I
enough.
think that's the allegation.
Larry, what's your thoughts on this one?
There's a little guilt by association going on here. He no longer works at the firm, obviously, and he's been scrubbed out of their list of lawyers there. I don't know.
Haven't we all?
Yes. We've all- it would be like associating me with something that KKOB does today, and I haven't worked there in 5 years.
That's an excellent analogy. That's
I
interesting.
do hold you accountable.
Chris Sanchez, your thoughts on this one?
Well, the governor appointed him, and I have full confidence in her judgment, and so I think he'll be doing a fine job.
So okay to wait and see on this one, case by case, see how it works
yeah,
out?
I think so, and I think that Larry brings up a good point about his past.
Here you go. John, your thought there?
Well, I mean, I actually, there's an expression in Spanish up in northern New Mexico, dime con quien andas y te diré quién eres. Tell me who you run with and I'll tell you who you are. I mean, there is a guilt by association. I think this is an example where the Martinez administration is essentially letting a regulated industry run the show. And unfortunately, Mr. Flynn is a pawn in that effort. And I really wish the administration would back off and begin enforcing the laws as they are written rather than the way they wish they were written.
Can we all agree this is a great show tonight? Can we all agree with that?
Fantastic.
It's like agreements
I
here.
love you guys.
Look at this. Nice. Thanks for taking time with us this week. A reminder, you can always catch our show online at newmexicoinfocus.org and keep up with us during the week on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Gene Grant. We'll see you then in Focus.